And now to kick off our next session, we're going to start with an inspiring video.
All right. Hey, so we got a great panel here, some interesting people, some familiar faces. I guess the best way to start this off would be, you know, a musical superstar, a super inventor, and a chief sustainability officer walk into a bar. Only Coke products are served.
Of course.
Or something like that. Anyway, no, this is not a disparate group. Actually, you should have seen them backstage. They're huddling and talking and communicating. They're working on all kinds of cool ideas together and separately, using creativity, innovation, marketing to really push the sustainability agenda, I guess, is one way to describe it for a variety of reasons. They're doing so many cool projects. We're going to talk about all that here this morning. So join me in welcoming Dean Kamen, Bea Perez, and Will.i.am. Thank you guys so much for coming. Will, I want to start with you. And so my understanding is that you kind of reached out to Coke with your idea and said, hey, Bea Perez, can you meet me backstage? I've got this idea I want to talk to you about. Is that how things started?
Yeah, we were on tour in 2009. 2009, we were on tour. And I asked a colleague of mine if they could hook up a meeting with the people at Coca-Cola because I had a concept I wanted to share with them. So met Bea. I'm like, hey Bea, it's Will. I'm like, I got this idea. We're gonna come back to Atlanta soon. I would like to sit down and pitch it to you guys at Coca-Cola. She never heard the idea, but she was open-minded enough to be like, okay, I'll set up a meeting. So I didn't think that was going to be the result. Thought I was going to get like the traditional, okay, let me contact your manager or, you know, the blah, blah, blah.
Right.
So I had to make my deck. So while I was on the road, I made my deck, made my presentation.
Sounds familiar, you know, to other people out there, right?
Yeah, but I have to interrupt him. That wasn't any deck. We're talking about a hand-carved booklet, of course, with a nice green cover that said EcoCycle, and every page you turned was a narrative, and it was unfolding a picture of how Will wanted to paint a better place for the future generations. And it was so, I mean, it captured your heart, your soul, every emotion you can even think of. And I'll let you keep telling the story, but it was the most powerful thing, not just any deck. I'd never seen any deck like this one before.
So, you know, I was like, how am I gonna, you know, it's intimidating, you know, to be in front of like all the top Coke execs. So I'm sitting there and I'm like, I wasn't sweating, but I was sweating on the inside.
I know that feeling.
Because you don't want to show it.
Yeah.
So, you know, I presented the concept. And the big catch for me was how to convey around the concept of sustainability, how does Coca-Cola become a verb? And if you don't believe that verbs are important for companies to become, you should Google it.
Right.
So verbs are important today. What's the action from a brand? Like, what does it mean? How do they become pillars that hold up the tent around society? So EcoCycle was that verb, taking Coca-Cola, taking the word Coke, flipping it, becoming eco-C, and you can have eco-cycles, eco-consciousness, eco-consumption, eco-cool, eco-credibility, eco-centers. You could do things like that with your verb, becoming a verb, and the technology allows you to do that, to take plastic bottles and turn them into pants, to take aluminum and turn them into glasses, and creating a commodity out of what would one call waste. So it's only waste because you waste the opportunity to turn it into something else. So that was the concept. And
so some of the specific things that you're doing right now.
So now, since 2009, we've, ironed out, fixed, all the holes in what I presented in 2009. I was touring, so of course there's going to be holes. So we fixed those holes.
There weren't that many holes.
So we fixed them, and now we have Beats EcoCycle as the partner. We have Ruka EcoCycle, MCM EcoCycle, Levi's EcoCycle, Case Made EcoCycle, New Era Hat EcoCycle, Adidas EcoCycle, and now the NBA EcoCycle.
All right, we're going to ask you to flesh some of that out a little bit more, and I'm also going to ask you where you got that jacket, because I got to get one. I'm sure I can't afford it. It's awesome. I mean, really. I don't think I would wear it quite as well, but that's what I think. Hey, Dean, so same kind of question for you, and we want you to talk all about Slingshot, and I mean, it's just really super cool. It's just another thing that you've done that's just kind of mind-blowing. Can you talk about the genesis and also how you connected with Coke?
I'm happy to tell you how we connected with Coke. I also have to tell you, he doesn't reach just the Coke.
Can't hear you. This mic's not hot. Heat up his mic.
It's not plugged in.
Oh.
Oh.
Got to lean in.
I don't know if I can plug it in without seeing it.
Let me help you.
You knew we would have to say that at some point in this conference, right?
Is it plugged in now?
Are you hot? Yeah, you're hot.
How's that?
Okay.
Excellent.
Good. Sorry about that. Okay, go ahead.
I'd be happy to tell you how we connected with Coke, but I also have to 1 minute tell you how we connected with Will. He reached out to Coke in 2009, and in 2010 I get a call from Will. He had known a little about FIRST, my program for kids, and technology. And out of the blue, hey Dean, you've been making statements that kids have the wrong heroes. They're all from one industry, entertainment. And I figured, uh-oh, here's an entertainer about to beat me up. He said, I agree with you, and I love technology. How can I help? Well, Will, I just heard you're going to do the halftime show for the ultimate of all sports in this country, the Super Bowl. Why don't you finish that in January, and then in April do a whole halftime show at the championship of FIRST? And he said, okay.
Does everyone know what FIRST is?
FIRST is a program that gets kids excited about science and technology. It's robotics. This year we had 29,000 schools from 69 countries, about 1 million kids. But we filled the arena under the arch in St. Louis, and Will and the Black Eyed Peas back then came and did an entire show for us. And he's been a big supporter ever since. He was with us at this year's championship a couple of days ago. So thank you for that, Will.
Awesome.
He's not, he's being modest about what FIRST is. US FIRST, when you watch television and you watch the news and we talk about this American educational crisis, and we talk about like how America's like, we're not leading when it comes to kids compared to the developing worlds. Well, if there was a fix where you could actually just plug it in and change America like that, it would be US FIRST. Before I said, okay, I'll perform at the US FIRST halftime and do the Super Bowl for the Super Bowl of the Mind. He was like, you need to come by and check out the kickoff. So I went to New Hampshire and I saw
in January.
Ooh.
He leaves LA to come. Now that's commitment to New Hampshire for my
Sure
kickoff.
is. Right,
and by the way, he shows up he shows up and we have thousands of corporate sponsors, literally thousands of them there for this night to kick off the new season with the new rules and the new game. And at the end of the evening, he was staying over as a house guest because we last minute, and everybody leaves, and I figured, boy, he must be charged up. And I said, Will, now you see the excitement. Can you really make this thing cool to kids? Because we're the best kept secret in the world, except for the schools we're in. He looks right at me. I'm sure you remember this. He says, Dean, I can't make this cool. And I'm thinking, oh, no. He says, I can't make this cool. It's already cool. Oh. But I can make it loud. And he did.
Yeah, we were in his library, and there was like magnificent people in the room. I'm like, wow, you're from the Department of Defense. It was like, you know, the wizards of the world. So then I'm like, I know how to make it loud. Why don't we put it on TV? They were like, we've been doing this for 20 years, and I don't think we're going to be able to put this on TV. We would have had it on TV already. It's like, no, we got to rethink it. I'll come back to you and figure out a way to do it. So went back on tour. And then, but I didn't know how I was going to get it on TV. But that doesn't mean you don't, do the show. So I brought our whole tour stage and landed it at the US First Championships in St. Louis. Not knowing how I was going to pull it off, but after we filmed all the content, I called up ABC and bought the time myself. It's like, hey, why don't I just call ABC, call them on phone. We just hit the Super Bowl. And asked them if I could buy an hour worth of time and turn it into a back-to-school special.
By the way, the hour of time he bought, I've come to know, I don't know much about TV, it was something like 7 o'clock Sunday night, which is their sacred hour for kids and all that. And he bought the hour. Wow. And then I started calling all our big sponsors and say, you're all going to buy an ad to make this thing work. And every one of them did. So it was great.
But you got to see these kids, 2 years ago, they were like 9 to 18. A couple of weeks ago, I saw a 6-year-old building. He was like, we're getting even younger. We're going to get these kids started at an even earlier age so they, when they get 12, it's already ingrained and they know exactly, what they want to become.
And with Legos, because he
is
the
they're
first
building
Lego
with Legos.
So with
Just
Legos,
amazing.
we're building robots.
Yeah, we have one of our partners is the Lego company, and Kjeld Christensen, the chairman of Lego, flew over. But this year we had 21,000 first Lego League teams.
Can the three of you guys just move to Washington, D.C. and run the country? Because I think it would work a lot better than what we've got right now.
All right, so I'll
be a lot more fun. I do want you to talk about Slingshot. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, but it is connected. As you talk about Slingshot, that generation, those are the kids that turn into adults who are changing the world, who, I'm convinced they will all work for Dean at some point and build 1,000 more Slingshots or whatever they become.
So truth be told, we didn't start out trying to figure out how to make potable water for the world. I've spent 30 years, my day job is mostly building medical equipment for most of the big guys in the pharmaceutical companies, medical products companies. And with one of my partners, we pretty much, they supply virtually the world of home peritoneal dialysis. We've delivered more than 250 million therapies. And many, many years ago, I went back to them after we made the first practical small home device that you could dialyze yourself. Get out of these centers, have them dignity, have a quality of life. And it works. The trouble is, every day you need to cycle through that machine about 4 or 5 gallons of, and I don't mean pure water, like we have drinking water, we take it for granted in this country. You try to take tap water from anywhere in this country, run it through your veins, you're not going to be living in a few minutes. So I said, look, the next thing we got to do to advance this dialysis even further is figure out how to not require, once we place a machine in somebody's home for the rest of their life or until they get a kidney transplant, not require shipping tons and tons of bags of sterile water all over the world to hundreds of thousands of patients. I said, I know what we'll do. We'll just filter it. Well, it turns out you can't, as a practical matter, filter your way to water for injection. The U.S. Pharmacopoeia standard's high. You can't do it. I said, all right, we'll use the gold standard that's used in the pharmaceutical industry. We'll distill the water. But I got to make a small, simple, quiet, reliable device that can make pure water even out of the tap water. You get absolutely pure water anywhere in the world from any local water. and it has to be something you can plug into an ordinary outlet in the home. And it was simple. After about 10 years, we were just about there. And, and then I realized, wait a minute, it not only will take pretty good tap water, since it's a distiller, and make it pure. If the inlet water is a latrine, if it's a chemical waste site, if it's salt water from the ocean, if it's toxic waste, it's the gold standard. We make the world's purest water out of anything. And I said, I can certainly make the lives of a couple of 100,000 patients a lot more convenient by giving them this, but they have another alternative. There are a couple of billion people that are sick every day. There are a couple of 4 or 5 million kids that are dying every year because they don't have clean water. This thing could be scaled, actually from where it was, it could be scaled up a little. It could make 1,000 liters, 250 gallons, enough for 100 people.
A day.
Per day. I said and if you got a village that's 2 or 3 or 500 people, use 2 or 3 or 5 machines, get some competition going. So I immediately started figuring out how to scale this machine so it would be small enough you could carry it anywhere, but big enough that it would meaningfully supply, let's say per machine, 100 people. Here's the rub. Once I knew I could make a machine of that scale, I went to all the industry I know, the medical companies, and they all told me the same thing. Dean, we love you, but we know why you come to us. You know, we're giants. We serve people in 40 countries, 50 countries, 60, all of Europe, North America, and Japan. But of the 206 countries on the planet, even the biggest of the pharmaceutical companies don't have great, effective reach into 150 of them. They just don't go there. Those people don't have sophisticated medical technology. So I'm thinking this thing is going to remain a science fair project for a long time. What am I going to do? I went to the United Nations. I went to the World Bank. I said, I'll give it to you. I don't want royalties. I can use it for my medical clients. You can get it out there. They all said, yeah, it's a great idea. Well, we don't have any more capability to put products in the world than you do. And suddenly, because of First, I'm down in Atlanta, and I see that big Coca-Cola. I mean, Coca-Cola, well, they're not really a soft drink company. That's their sideline. They are the world's largest logistics footprint. They bottle their product in 206 countries. There's no village you can go to in the world. If there's one product you can buy anywhere, it's a Coke. So I went to see them and said, you got a system. What if you could help us put our machines in places around the world and give people life, give people, I mean, 50% of all the hospital beds in the world have people in them because of bad water. So Coke, you could become the world's largest healthcare provider. Just help me get these machines out.
Right. And so, Bea, what did you guys say? Do you think it's a wacky idea?
Well, you know, every idea that's wacky also has a good purpose behind it, especially when Dean's involved. And, you know, I'll give credit to our CEOs. And it was, you know, now Muhtar Kent who said, we're going to take this idea and we're going to scale it. And you heard over the last few days here this notion around self-interest and that's okay. Well, there's a couple things that are happening here. One is, I think everyone knows that, you know, 90+% of this product is water.
Right.
And we are going to grow our business. We've publicly claimed we're going to double our business by 2020. How are we going to do that? We're going to do it in a lot of these countries that are dealing with water stress. So we have an accountability to make sure that before we even open up a new operation, that we're mindful of what's happening in that community and that we're putting in the water infrastructure, helping to replenish those communities and bring them access to fresh, clean drinking water first. Then down the road, we can have a viable business. So there's some self-interest because we know water is the single most important issue that we face around the world, and it's solvable. We absolutely know that. And leveraging Dean's technology, he gave us an additional way to leverage technology to bring it into these communities that a lot of people won't go into.
Right.
And that was pretty powerful because we do have, you know, 400 water projects in 96 countries. What this added in was this gave us the ability to localize in schools. In Ghana, in the video that was running here, 5 schools, instant access. You saw the kids turn on the taps. If you could see their faces when they turned on the taps, it was the first time that one of those kids didn't have to walk 5 hours in the morning to go collect water that was clean from a nearby village. And they were able to stay in school, which meant that they didn't fall behind in their grades. And then they could still participate with their family activities. So it's a game changer. That's what Dean brought to the table. And we have a CEO who I think everyone probably who reads our annual reports knows that we don't just have pure business objectives. One of our 6 critical objectives that every executive in our business is held accountable to is called Planet. And we have very distinct goals.
Can I ask you guys to just give a rapid fire specs and where you actually stand? You said 1,000 liters a day. How much does it cost? How much does it cost to run? Is it really being rolled out? How does it work? Are you just giving these things to villages, or can you guys talk about that
if
quickly?
you looked at that video, a couple of years ago when Coke said, great, we'll give it a try, build us some prototypes, you saw them moving them there, 6 feet high, and they weigh about, at the time, 600-700 pounds. It had the identical performance of what was in here, but it was all handmade stuff. We put those in Ghana, and between November and March last year, we produced 140,000 liters of pure water in 5 of these schools, and each machine worked flawlessly without a hiccup. So then Coke came back and said, all right, Dean, we'll give you some support to tool it up, make it smaller, make it lighter so we can move it around. This machine weighs substantially under 300 pounds. It does produce 1,000 liters a day. It will run on less power than a handheld hairdryer.
Per day?
Yeah,
like that's the run.
That's what
run
it
rate.
runs. It needs no filters, no membranes, no chemicals, no chlorine, nothing. And the goal is you can let it sit out there, and with very minimal oversight, you don't have to pre-test the water. It doesn't matter. Organics, inorganics, cryptosporidia, hexvalent, chrome, arsenic, we don't care.
And wait, and to answer Andy's question to this point, it's really easy, I think, for corporations to give up and find 200 reasons why something can't be done. And you point out it's not cheap to invest in this. Dean already invested 10 years in helping that technology become what it is today and to take it to this next level. What Coca-Cola did is we said, okay, so we learned a lot from the test in Ghana, and some things didn't work out the way we all planned. I mean, we didn't plan to have a forklift have to put it into a certain location. We want the community to be able to manage it. There were many things. What I really, am proud of my company for is instead of saying, okay, well, here's the report on all the things that went wrong and let's just shut it down, Muhtar Kent said, no, let's keep investing. Innovation is so important to society and to where we're headed and to sustainability that we need to invest and take this to the next level. And that's when Muhtar and Dean sat in a room and said, we're going to scale this to the point of offering 500 million liters of water as we start to scale these machines in countries that a lot of people will not be in. So you can your brain can go a little wild. We haven't announced all our countries, but what I will tell you is that right now we have 1 unit in Paraguay that we're testing out this evolution. We have 3 locations in Mexico we're going into. We'll be in South Africa very soon. And the list goes on and on. So those are the ones we've publicly stated.
Right.
But and it's the same thing, as I look at, I feel very fortunate to sit between 2 phenomenal inventors and creators and passionate people who innovate on a daily basis. And it's not unlike the programs we have with Will going on. I mean, asking manufacturers to change how they manufacture their jeans or their headphones, things are going to go wrong. Absolutely. It's how you build the bridge and the partnership to deal with things when they go wrong, to ultimately improvement, to not give up, because if we give up, we're giving up on society.
Right.
And that's what I think ultimately we have to understand.
Well, let me ask Will, so how involved, and there are a million questions, like first of all, how does it work? But we'll maybe get back to that. Will, how involved are you in the actual processes in terms of, getting the materials, understanding, what materials are used to make what products? How hands-on are you?
So the wonderful thing about EcoCycle, we don't claim that we're the world's first company that makes products out of sustainable materials. What I learned was, in my travels, that X company will make one item that's green out of sustainable materials, and it gets swallowed by their business. So they'll do one little thing here, and it's kind of cool. I prefer the one that's not green because the style and design that they put for the green stuff is just, it ain't cool.
Right.
And the stuff that is cool, you find in Holland. You're on trip in Holland, you're like, wow, look at these shoes. Yeah, those are made out of tires. Then you bring them home and you really can't find them anywhere. And they cost you, those tire shoes cost like $1,000.
Yeah.
And they made like 10 of them. So I'm like, wow, I went to Barney's. I saw that shirt that's made out of plastic bottles. It didn't really look as good as the one made out of silk or cotton.
Yeah.
So I was like, you know, how let's make this eco-cycle thing that allows brands to bring their sustainable efforts in and under this umbrella called eco-cycle around these sensibilities. So to answer your question directly, you know, I put my hand in the sensibility that companies should follow suit to make it this uniform concept. And you know, if Ruka does a pair of shorts, they're going to benefit from Beats headphones. They're going to benefit being associated with Levi's 501s. They're going to benefit from, you know, Adidas shoes and jerseys that we're going to do for next year's NBA season. So it's like this uniform around, you know, agents of change.
Right. Let me ask you a question. Well, I mean, how did you get your mind into this particular cause, for lack of a better word? I mean, in other words, some people care about, you know, hunger. Some people care about politics. But you chose to sort of go the sustainability route. What spurred you to do that?
Well, I get involved in politics, but I don't like to call it politics.
Right.
I just call it, you know, social activism around communities and how paying attention to certain things, you know, will change your community and your tomorrow.
Right.
So I get involved when I see it, my fit being authentic. Right.
All right.
So this particular venture and passion point came from three things, really. One, that trip to Holland when I saw those tire shoes.
Oh, that was for real?
Right, that's for real.
Okay.
And then...
I thought it was a metaphorical. Like,
no, I do.
Okay, okay.
I do metaphors sometimes. But
we all do.
It was for real, for real. And then I went to CGI, Clinton Global Initiative, and I sat and I heard about the G8 Millennium Goals in 2008. So I'm like, wow. You know, this is right after when I did the Yes We Can for Obama. And I'm sitting there in New York, and I'm learning about, you know, how certain companies should adhere to the Millennium Goals, and, you know, Coke being zero waste by year 2020, and other companies, the things they have to do, and how crowded the planet's going to be in year 2020, and how are we going to feed everybody. So I started, like, it really hit me. And then right after that, I went on. We had a concert. Then usually when we have a big concert in a stadium, we do a quick out. Like, we'll be like, I got a feeling, and then the music stops.
That's
and
a mini concert.
Then it'll play again, and then we deck out the back and ride away, and everybody's like, oh, they're coming back, but we're gone.
That's how it works. Oh.
No, because then you're stuck in traffic. So this time we missed the quick out. We're like, darn it.
Yeah.
So now we have to wait 2 hours. So it was the first time I sat and saw the aftermath of our show. And so we're backstage. We're like, okay, well, let's just party on the stage and bring people from the audience to party with us. It sounds like a good evening while we're in, I think we're in Chile or something. So we're there in Chile partying, and I see just this sea of trash. I'm like, wow. And I just remembered what I experienced at CGI. And a lot of times, you know, we walk around elbowless. And what I mean by that is, when you walk around with no elbows, all you can do is point at other people because you can't point at yourself. Right. So I decided to bend a little bit and point at me as one of the people that contribute to landfills and waste and, you know, the mess via consumption or, you know, bringing people together and not being accountable. So I was like, you know, I don't want to be one of those guys. I'm gonna point at myself because I brought these people together. One time I wrote songs that galvanized a whole bunch of people, that caused a whole bunch of weight. People went and bought things and chucked them with no type of sensibility on how to act when they're at a concert. There's no responsibility, there's no accountability. We buy things, we throw things when there's trash cans right over there. But why are they gonna chuck them in the trash can if nobody gives them a reason to take a couple of steps and put it in that recycle bin? How does my activity and culture and society lend the whole concept to, I'm going to buy this water bottle, chuck it here because it's going to turn into something else. So that's when it all came, you know, when I had the idea.
That's great. It's a real epiphany, a real moment like that.
Yeah.
So I want to throw it open to questions from the audience. Let's see, we got to turn the lights up for that. Do we have any questions from the audience? Right here? Here or here? Yep.
Hi, Jeff Rochester with the Nature Conservancy. Hey, Bea, could you talk a little bit about the implications of Slingshot and the kiosk to women? Because I think that's a very interesting story.
Yeah, so what Jeff brought up, and some of you may know, we've grouped our activities in sustainability into people, communities, and environment. And across the top, all with a vision of zero waste, across the top, well-being, women, water, highly connected. So as Dean was talking to us about the Slingshot and really coming up with a bigger idea, it was how do we bring our program to empower 5 million women by 2020 together with the initiatives in water as well as well-being, because we know that half the hospital beds in the world are occupied by people with waterborne illness. How do you link all these assets together? So what Will referenced earlier, and he named it, we came up with a bigger idea. You call it a kiosk, we now call it an eco-center. It was how do you bring a community in a box into places that lack access to water, energy, telecommunications, entertainment, education. And so this Eco Center, which is a 20-foot container, inside of it has a Slingshot. It can be powered by any power source, whether it's solar panels or the Stirling engine that you might have seen outside. Mm-hmm. So any energy source. We'll have refrigeration for vaccines. We'll have TV units to either plug in remote education programming or the World Cup or one of Will's concerts. And so you're bringing it all together, being run by a woman entrepreneur who we will be working on a business model to say, okay, how can she also sustain it over time? So what's in it for her community? How is she going to generate some revenue to sustain it and be able to sell goods out of it that are relevant to her local environment? So we have brought on some partnerships because we know we can't do it alone. It requires partnerships. You might have heard us talk about the Golden Triangle with business, government, NGOs, civil society. And in this case, we have partners like the Inter-American Development Bank for Latin America. We have Africare in Africa. We have Qualcomm for some of the communications, NRG. I'm not sure if I can say them all, but we do have partners, and you'll be continuing to read more about it. And our intent is to have this program be brought together so we can truly drive scale in some of the most remote locations. And we recognize we're going to learn. So we're placing some of those first eco centers in Mexico and Africa very soon. And as we continue to learn, as we place them, we'll continue to improve and evolve them.
We had another question right here. Mm-hmm.
Yes, I'm Ellen Weinrib, and I have a question for Dean about Slingshot and the life cycle of the product and the end of life. I'm sure you've thought about that. So if you could address that, please.
We can, and since you were looking for metaphors, the metaphor I'll give you for that is you can go up into the clouds and you don't see osmosis membranes up there, you don't see chemicals, you don't see all the different systems we use to remediate different kinds of problems in water. You asked how it works. Mm-hmm. It works like nature does. Mm-hmm. Nature takes water out of the ocean and leaves the salt behind. Nature will take surface water out of the most polluted latrine with bioburden. Basically, you go up into a cloud, and the only thing that gets up there is nice, pure, naturally distilled water. It gets cold. It reconverts back to a liquid from a vapor. It comes down. Right. Basically, our goal was to go into the developing world. We figured they're not going to have sophisticated ways to test for what's wrong with the water or figure out how much of this or that to use to remediate it. We said, well, just the entire operating system would be, or the instruction set would be, your little device has 2 hoses on it. One of them you stick in anything that looks wet, and out of the other one comes pure water, like nature. What we really do is we run the water from any source through the machine, and then we, in a very concentrated way, very quickly vaporize it, quickly recondense it. The magic, though, is that it takes an enormous amount of energy normally. If you were going to literally do that to 1,000 liters of water, it would take 25 kilowatts of continuous power. the magic in the closed system, and as we keep recycling the same energy, in fact, once it's running, we don't even have any heaters. Just the energy it takes to run the compressors is all it takes to keep the cycle going. We have 25 kilowatts continually going through our heat exchangers, but virtually no heat source coming in. Right. Therefore, most of the machine, to answer your question, is now plastics, so that we don't have corrosion problems. And we essentially levitate the one high-speed rotating component, drive it magnetically with a system of motors that keep all the seals and all the moving parts away from all the fluid, both the inlet fluid and the outlet fluids, so that it should have very, very long life with very, very low maintenance. But in the end, we're expecting it to run 1 million liters, 1,000 liters a day for 1,000 days minimum, 3 or 4 years, and then it'll take probably a cleaning. We don't know what, if anything else we need to do, but the goal, and with the help of Coke, we keep reducing the size, weight, and cost, and increasing the life expectancy before it needs to even be overhauled.
All right, there is so much more to talk about, but unfortunately we are out of time. And I thought this was a really terrific session, very inspirational, and a lot of great ideas. So please join me in thanking Dean Kamen, Bea Perez, and Wil.i.am. Thank you guys so much. Thank you very much.